So many companies, not just HVAC companies, they just focus on revenue and sales, and they just assume, okay, if I make more money, if I make more sales, I make more money. But that's not always the case because it's a pretty dangerous assumption. And if your revenue isn't break even, then growing more is actually a problem, right? It makes things worse. And so I'm going to show you how to calculate your revenue, variable cost, create what's called contribution margin, add in fixed cost, and then you have break even revenue. And then just sort of show you in this this is this column and line chart here called the combo chart, what months are above break even, what months are below, and then also your contribution margin. Okay, so let's get started. So in the data here, and this is a dummy data set, like I'm sure, if you go to Service Titan and QuickBooks and get your exports, you can patch stuff like this together. But if you need some help with that, just let me know. But also, I'm going to be posting a lot of videos to show like different functions on how you can do that from Service Titan or any of the exports that you're getting. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to get the month here, and if you already see it here because I added it, but I'm going to show you how to add it. So you have a date, and what we want is we want the word January here, and then we want the word February, here, and then March, April, May. So equals text, and it's a text function, and the text function is going to allow you to do that. And so you can do equals text, and then click on the cell that has the date in it, and then do 4Ms. And that's going to give you the month. If you did 3Ms, it's going to give you the 3-letter month. The text function is very like powerful. If you did 4Ds, it's going to give you the day. So January 1st was a Wednesday. If you do 3Ds, it's going to give you, the 3-letter version of that day. But we want the full name of the month. And then you can just drag that down. Variable cost. And then we're going to calculate the contribution margin. We're not going to use this, although we could. And then we also need to get fixed cost, which is just essentially, what was my total fixed cost in January divided by, 31 days. Okay. So actually, it's not divided by 31 days. It's just divided by the number of jobs. And so what I'll do is I'll copy this. And if you want this file, the link is in the description, or just shoot me an email. Okay, just so we have that. You can always type it in, but I'm trying to save some time here. And then just type in the word January, and then just drag that down. And then you got it all the way. And then let me just center everything here. Okay, so for revenue, we want to sum the revenue column if the month is January. And so fortunately, Excel has a function called SUMIF, and we'll do SUMIFS. So SUMIFS is going to sum the revenue if January. And SUMIFS versus SUMIF is SUMIFS is multiple criteria. It's one or more, as to where SUMIF is just one. I always use SUMIFS. I never use SUMIF. Okay. So revenue is the first argument, right? So the sum range. So like, where's the values? Because maybe you're not just summing revenue. Maybe you want to sum, I don't know, hours worked, or something like that. And so that's the first thing is the value column. And then the next argument is the criteria range, not the criteria of January, but the range where January is. And then comma, and then you can click January. And so press Control Shift and the number 4, and you'll get $, be valued as, what's going on here? Why is that doesn't make any sense? Yeah, it's because I did this wrong. It's not data C2. It's right here. Yeah, that was weird. Okay, so we have that, and then now we want to do the exact same thing. And what I mean by the exact same thing is the exact same formula. It's just an F to get variable cost. And so over here in what I'll do is I'll just highlight this, copy it without the equal sign, equals this, and then instead of doing E, just change it to F. Control Shift 4. Then you can remove that, drag it down. Okay, so contribution margin is just subtracting those two, right? It's just revenue minus variable cost. So equals this minus this. And again, drag it down. And then for fixed cost, what we're going to do is just, again, SUMIFS. We can also copy and paste. It's all good, but it's just fixed costs. And then here, right, because we're doing it by the month, and then January, it's $125,000 a month. Control Shift 4. Okay, so contribution margin is just going to equal this divided by this. And then you can drag that down. And then if you want to make it as a percent, press Control Shift 5. instead of 4 for the dollar. Okay, so break-even revenue is a little bit different. So what it is it's your fixed cost divided by your contribution margin. So it's going to equal this divided by this, and now you have your break-even revenue. Because for the month of January, you had 127,000, but you need to make 297, which you did. But that's subtracting the variable cost. So for the month of January, this was your contribution margin, but you had this much fixed cost as well. And so you need to divide those two. Okay, because this is a little bit more than this, you could have made a little bit less money, right? To get to break even. Okay, so let's do the conditional formatting. You just highlight the revenue, and then go to home, conditional formatting, color scales, and then do green is high. Because with this, green is better, right? The higher number is better. As so with variable cost, so we can do the higher number red, that's fine, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's worse, right? Like for example, I'll show you. Let's just do it, and then I'll show you the argument. So this, but it's like, okay, so your highest variable cost was 210, but it also is your highest month of revenue, right? So it makes sense that it would carry through, right? And then for contribution margin, what I'll show you is instead of doing everything all over again, you can use the format painter. So highlight the revenue. And the reason I'm using this column is because green is high. So for contribution margin, green is high. So format painter, and then it'll work that way. You could also double click, and then, for contribution margin, again, Control Shift 5. And then for break even revenue, you could do however you want. You could do red is high, so like a lower break even revenue is better. But I'll just do green is high. You could do this however you want. And then I'm going to add a decimal. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to add the first chart, actual revenue versus break-even revenue. So you can just highlight the month, highlight revenue, and then highlight break-even revenue, right? Because what we want is this combo chart, but we want them on the same axis. Like, we don't need a secondary axis. So insert recommended charts, and let's go to all charts, and then click combo chart, and then you have it here. Like, you can see, because here you can choose what you want the other one to be. As to where with the sort of the other ones, like they tell you it's like, this is what you do, want this. Like, they don't give you an option to change. And you have that here. And if you want, you can add values. If you add values to everything, it doesn't look that, it's going to be super noisy. And so if you say you just want the line, you can click on the line and do it that way. But it's also super, noisy. And the columns aren't going to be much different. But if you want the values, that's how you do it. I'm not going to put the values. But if you wanted them, you could do it that way. And then the final chart is super, super simple as well. Contribution margin. We just want to chart this by month. And so all you have to do is highlight month, hold down the control key, highlight contribution margin, go to insert, and then you can just choose a line chart here, and then I'll make it black, not do that. And then here you can put the values. It should be a little bit less noisy. Yeah, so it's a little bit better. And then here you can say, actual versus break even revenue. So you can sort of see, like, and it makes sense, like, some months are slow, but your fixed costs are still the same, right? Salaries and stuff like that, overhead, office space. Okay, so the final thing I want to show is how to create what's called a sparkline, which is these little bad boys right here. And so just you can put the word trend here, or like, I added a row beneath. So if you want, you can just put trend here, and you can make it a little bit narrow or something. So all you have to do is click in this cell C. I have a little overlay on the screen, that's why I can't see it. Cell C16, go to insert, and then you can see right here it says sparklines, and then just click on line. And then now with the data range, just highlight the data range, and then click OK. And then if you want say the high point and the low point, you could do it that way, and then you can just drag it across. I'm going to delete this one because it's all the same, right? Actually, you can't. Let me drag it, because it does it as a range, and so I just copy and then I'll paste it over. But anyways, that is how you can, create break-even revenue. Again, like, I created these data sets. I have HVAC clients that I've created, this is a similar sort of beginning ending data set to be able to begin to do the actual work. But with your CSV exports from Service Titan or whatever it is you're using, it's not going to be so clean, and you have to tie it in with QuickBooks or whatever accounting software you're using. But it's doable. And so if you don't have somebody that can do that for you, then just leave a comment in the video, shoot me an email. Questions at databoards.io. Also, there's a link to a form if you want to hop on a call. All you have to do is fill it out, and we can set up a time to chat. But if not with that stuff, then I will see you in future videos. I'm going to be making a lot of these. I already have made a lot, and so yeah, stay tuned. And oh, finally, if you want to see some KPIs that I'm not covering, again, just that form, just fill it out or shoot me an email, and then I can try to make some content on that. But for HVAC, I'm doing like 200 videos, so it's going to be a lot of KPIs. But anyways, that is all I got on this one, and I will see you in future videos.